Hi, 7th graders from Ames Middle School. We got lucky today, and instead of just getting to chat with Ruth, who's standing over there casually watching, we're going to get to chat with some of the people in the lab who actually help make the GMOs here in Ames.
I just said these guys do GMO work here in Ames. Well, that's pretty close to accurate because they do select for specific traits and try to get them in soybeans. They do it through breeding, so it would be more accurate to call them breeders than genetic modifiers.
Could you introduce yourselves?
My name is Danny Singh. I'm glad you're watching this video. We love science. I hope some of you will take science as a career. I'm a plant scientist working at Iowa State University.
Sweet.
Hi guys, my name is Jonathan Shook. I'm a student with Dr. Singh here, and I'm working on trying to identify exactly what's causing the differences in how soybeans perform. So looking at the molecular causes of that and finding out what different genes are doing within the crop.
Sweet. So you figure out what genes do what.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Kevin Chiteri and I'm a student with Singh. And in addition to what John said is that so we just help empower the plants so that they can survive when it's too hot, when it's too cold, when they are affected by insects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you help the traits be better for their environment.
We're
Help
trying
the
to make
traits survive.
soybean be more productive.
Yeah, so the farmers can make more
So,
money
yes.
and we can get more food.
They're environmentally conscious.
Sweet. So we're in a lab right now. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And the lovely people we were just introduced to are going to kind of show us around a little bit. So let's take a look.
So generally speaking, the lab is a very active place. A lot of people are in the lab working on different projects.
Group work is a thing, guys.
Group work is a thing. We work as a team. There are lots of different people in the lab. So as an example, this would be what would be a workstation. So a person, a scientist would be here. They would be doing their research, conducting their research, working with different aspects of the plant cells. So they may be looking at DNA, they may be looking at RNA, they may be looking at protein. So a lot of equipment and instruments, and I'll have John and Kevin explain a little bit more about some of the things that are going on in the lab.
Sweet.
Turns out we don't have to go all the way down there. So this is what's called a gel electrophoresis setup.
Whoa, that's a big word.
Right. So this is the PCR. So you're putting DNA into a gel, and then putting electrical current through it so that it moves throughout there. Small pieces are going to move more because they're more strongly pulled by that electric current, while the big pieces stay back further.
So it's kind of like a race.
Exactly.
And they're running a race, and the little ones have less to move, so they win that race.
Yep.
And the electricity, so we have some cords hooked up to this. The electricity is helping them run that race and push the little ones, right?
Yep. So what you're going to get in the end is you're going to have distinct bands that you can see where you can visualize that DNA, and you get bands running across for each lane that you're running. So you can run maybe 30 at a time and be able to see which combinations of alleles that are within each one of those lines. So you can identify if something's a hybrid or if it's purebred or inbred.
Yeah, okay. So those are more things we learned about in class. So what else is there?
Alright, when John also said that, so you visualize using the machine, right? But this right here
So this thing, what's it do?
is the machine that you're able to visualize the gel.
So
Once
this
it's
helps
the
us
gel-
see stuff.
Yeah, you can see
Okay.
because you can't see it just with your bare eyes.
Okay.
So you get in this machine and then you can be able to visualize the bands.
So do we see that twisted ladder shape?
No, you won't see this, right? Your teacher just told me you won't see this. You just see like bands.
Okay, why can't we see it?
They're too tiny for
Too
our
tiny
eyes.
for our eyes.
Right.
Yeah, super duper small.
It's pretty small.
Yeah. Okay, sweet.
Yeah. So what else we wanted to show you, because this is a molecular lab and this is the molecule. So it's called the molecular lab as basic things that you must have. And one of them is the fridge, which is at plus 4 degrees Celsius.
So that's chilly.
So that's 40 Fahrenheit.
Yeah,
So
40
kind of
Fahrenheit.
like your fridge at home.
Right.
Kind of like your fridge at home.
Right. And then
So what's this one?
and then we have a freezer here. You thought Iowa is cold, but this is like, can you see that? Negative 79 degrees Celsius. That
A
would be
little
like-
bit.
Negative 112 Fahrenheit.
Exactly.
Wow, negative
Right.
112.
Right.
And we think today is cold.
Right.
Yeah.
So we do store here our samples because they are sensitive to temperature changes, and so once here we know they're well stored.
I wonder what kind of ice cream you could make in a negative 80 degree freezer.
I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
you guys make and bring us right here you see is the cleaning station.
Mhm.
So just like at home, we have a place where I'm sure you guys know what this is, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
We don't get to do very many labs.
Okay, but that's
Seventh
okay. So
grade.
you have a station where you clean your stuff all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, and many more instruments that we have in the lab, and we'll be happy to host you guys to come and show you more.
Sweet. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Let's say goodbye to our 7th graders.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi.
So, this is Ruth McDonald.
Hi.
And I've been told you know a lot about GMOs.
I know a little bit. Yep.
Oh, okay, cool, sweet. Because we have some questions for you today. First of all, can we ask a little bit of a question beforehand of what exactly your role here is at Iowa State? What exactly your job is? What
Sure.
exactly you do?
Sure. I'm a professor here at Iowa State University, and I am in a department called Food Science and Human Nutrition. And so our work in that department is to understand how food helps your body. And we also understand what food is, and we make different kinds of food. You might see behind me on the shelf there is some popcorn. We have one of our students that graduated, and she works at ConAgra, and she made that popcorn. She created that variety of the microwave popcorn called Boom Chicka Pop.
Sweet.
And so that's what some food scientist people do as well.
Okay, so you would know pretty much anything about if the food is safe, how it might affect you, and where it came from, right?
Correct.
Sweet. Okay, cool. I know there's a lot of questions in here. Take a look at some of these questions from 3rd period.
Okay.
We're gonna choose
Pick this one.
Oh, we're picking that one? Sweet. Okay, so that one. Okay. What is your favorite thing about your job?
Great. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, science is fun. Doing science and learning new things is what I do every day. And so it's really fun to do that and to be around other scientists that are also doing fun things and hearing what they're doing. And then also being able to educate people. I teach classes here at Iowa State and I talk to students all the time. And so just learning what they're learning and trying to help them grow as people is really what I love about
Learning
my job.
is fun.
Learning is fun.
Sweet. Okay. Good question. Good question. Let's choose another one.
Let's
Pick
pick
that one. Okay.
this one.
Okay. What is your favorite? What
What
is
Yeah.
an organic?
That's a
fruit?
good question.
Yeah.
That's a
What's
good
an
question.
organic fruit?
So
or food?
organic, the word organic means that it contains what?
Organic
Nitrogen,
living
right?
stuff?
Like it's a
Yeah.
living thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of confusing to people when you talk about organic
Mhm.
because what we mean by this in today's world, in
Mhm.
the US, is that food has been approved to be grown under organic standards. And so that's something that the USDA, Department of Agriculture, oversees and says, okay, if you're an organic farmer,
Mhm.
you have to follow these rules.
Mhm.
And those rules are that you don't use synthetic fertilizers and that you don't have chemicals that are made from petroleum-based chemicals in your process, and that you treat your animals in a certain way. No
Okay.
antibiotics and no hormones.
So
So
they
it's a
follow
unique
rules.
rule, right?
Okay.
The thing that's important to remember is that organically produced food is safe and healthy, but so is other kinds of food. So we call the other kind of food conventionally grown food, and it usually isn't labeled that way. It's just it's just food. But it's just as safe and it's just as healthy. So if you have an apple and it's an organic apple, that's great. But if it's not labeled as an organic apple, it's also going to be very healthy for you.
Okay. Sweet. So it just follows this massive list of rules.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What have you worked on?
Okay, good question.
What have you worked on?
So my research was mainly about how foods and things that are in food can influence our risk of getting cancer. So I worked on things like breast cancer and prostate cancer and colon cancer, which are diseases that a lot of people have and get, and try to understand what is it about food and a healthy diet that can help people not get those diseases, and then also if they do have those diseases, how it can reduce them from getting worse.
Okay, so we should definitely believe you if you say something is safe.
Yeah, maybe. All right, let's take this one. Oh my goodness, this is a long one.
Okay, let's choose one of these questions. Wow, these are a lot of really good questions. How about, so lots of interest in humans. So could you genetically modify a baby human to be immune to sickness? Is that possible?
Well, actually it is.
It is.
Right now it's not legal to do
Mhm.
that, so that would be something that would be not approved to be done by a scientist, but the tools are there, and so eventually maybe when you grow up to be scientists, that may be something that would be possible, would be able to help people or babies that have a genetic defect to be corrected before they're born, and then they wouldn't have that disease when they're born. But it's not something that we do right now, so we aren't doing any kind of genetically modifications of people right now.
But we have the tools.
The tools are there.
Tools are there. Okay.
Okay.
What have you worked on at Iowa State? So
Kinda
this is
already
another.
answered that
We
one.
kind of think that one's
I already answered that one.
Okay. What makes GMOs so controversial?
Good
That's a really good question.
Yeah, so GMOs have been in our food supply since 1996, a long time ago.
Wow.
And
Wait, just a second. That means we knew what genes were back then, and we were able to take
1996?
them out all the way back then. Wow.
yes, yeah, absolutely. And so we've been exposed to genetically modified foods in the U.S. since that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that people have been worried about GMOs because they don't always understand the science, and so they've raised concerns about, well, these are genes, and I don't know what genes are, and they're different, and they're sometimes coming from other species and putting them into these plants. And I think it's just a lack of knowledge, primarily. It's great that you're learning this at a young age because you'll be able to explain this to other people and say, this is the science, these are the facts, and this is why we shouldn't be worried about this technology in our food supply.
Genes are genes are genes. DNA is DNA is DNA. They've all got A's, T's, C's, and G's.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so I think there's been a lot of activist groups and people that are worried about the food supply, and they don't like the idea of genetically modifying foods, and they've been very vocal about resisting it. And you can find a lot of stuff on the internet that would be against GMO technology, and it's important to understand the science so that you can sift through all that and make your own decisions.
Yeah. So I guess fear of the unknown.
Yeah, largely that's part of it.
Sweet. Great question.
All right, let's take this big one.
That big one? Okay, that big one says, I'm wondering, are GMOs bad?
Good question.
Good question.
So, no, there's no evidence. We've never had anybody in the U.S. that's been eating these GMOs since 1996 ever gotten sick from eating GMOs. There's never been an allergy to GMOs.
Would it ever mess up my DNA?
Would that mess up
Never
your
mess up
DNA?
your
You
DNA.
eat DNA all the time. You
Mhm.
extracted it from strawberries. You
There's
know
so much
it's
DNA
there.
in strawberry. Like, we got that whole big glop.
It's no different. You're just going to use it up in your body just like you would any other kind of DNA. So, no, there's no evidence that they're bad.
Okay. Let's try to answer one or two. One more? Okay. Are GMOs helpful to humans?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think a lot of people say, well, it's only because we're putting them into plants and we're making them resistant to herbicides or pest resistant. How does that help me and my health? The answer to that is, though, that because we can do that, creating those kinds of plants that are resistant to herbicides and pest resistant, we can use less chemicals on them. So it helps our health in the long run because we're not spreading chemicals as much as we had before we had GMO technology. Plus, the foods are healthier in the sense that they haven't been attacked by pests.
Do you remember that, like, ring spot virus
Yes.
on the papaya?
Yeah.
That was in our video? It saved that crop so those people could eat.
And make money and have a living because they were raising papaya. And if they didn't have that ability to
GMO.
save that
Yeah.
crop and make them safe, then they might not have been able to have a living.
Mhm.
So that's part of it. It's good for farmers and agriculture. It's also good for the environment, and it helps our food be less expensive, which is good for everybody.
Sweet.
Maybe one more.
Maybe one more? Let's do one more. Last one. Okay. What got you into GMOs, and what do you like about it?
Yeah, so I started talking to people about GMOs mainly because I wanted people to understand science. And it was frustrating for me to hear people complain about how unsafe they were or they didn't think that they should be used. And to know that the science was not agreeing with that the science was saying that these are safe and it's an important part of our food supply. So I got into it because I wanted to talk about that with people.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yep. See you third period.
Bye.